Yeah, so we're going to kick off with the next talk. So we have Jusef Belkasemi, is that right? Talking about making progress with progressive web apps and Ionic 3. So, thank you, Jusef.
Sorry. Yep, thank you. Let's see if this will require setting everything up again. What just happened here? Okay. Yeah, of course everything got changed once I yeah, that's correct on those things. That's fine. Don't care. Oh, it's awful. Do that. And again. Okay, so at first when I was doing this talk I was sort of trying to base it heavier on the actual use of Ionic, but then I realized we actually didn't have a talk on progressive web apps, so I tried to make it a little bit more generic just to try and convey what progressive apps actually are. So yeah, making progress with progressive web apps. First, a little bit about myself. So my name is Jusef Belkasemi. I'm a senior full-stack software engineer at a company called Infact UK Limited, and specialize in .NET and JavaScript and dab into a bit of Node and Rails. You can find me on Twitter under this nickname. Also, a lot of you will know me as that guy who likes Angular. So I'm a big fan of the Angular framework and use it every day, and been with the Angular from version, I think 1.4, and yeah, went through all the pain until the version 4 at which we are now. Obviously 5 is out as well, but haven't sort of incorporated that yet. But yeah. First is what set the record straight. I really like this expression, and I use this every day, and I've seen it to being quite effective. That if you as it was said, that if you want to learn something, read about it. If you want to understand something, write about it. And if you want to master something, teach it. So I think I've jumped straight into the teaching bit today. So I am not a professional progressive web app developer or anything like that. I'm just merely a web development enthusiast who has heard about this new concept and wants to share it with the rest of you, and I think it's a very good concept and very important for us to know about it. So a little background to why progressive web apps. How did we actually get here, and how did I get into looking at progressive web apps? In today's world full of tools and frameworks and different approaches in web development and all that hindered by the fact that teaching developers about web development became a very lucrative business, it becomes quite difficult to actually navigate around that world of how do we build for mobile, how do we build for desktop, and we have just too many options, too many frameworks, and etc. And so when we come to actually deciding to, okay, I want to enhance my users' mobile experience, we come to this decision that we need to take of what can we do. And here are some of the options. So we can go native. So we can decide that, yes, I want a native application for Android or for iOS, and yeah, let's go with that. We can go hybrid. So this is some of the, so Xamarin framework has been around for a while, trying to help building hybrid applications, and the Ionic, supported by Cordova, is there as well to build hybrid applications. Or we can go sort of a bit sorcery, a bit crazy with JavaScript running in a JavaScript virtual machine, and basically, writing that which renders into native user interfaces. So that's with React Native or NativeScript, depending on what frameworks you prefer to work with. All are valid approaches. Personally, I have tried most of it, and every time, I got problems, and for the following reasons, really. So, common problems. First and foremost is the steep learning curve. So if you decide, so all of the options that I've shown you, they come with a relatively steep learning curve. Even in the world of hybrid, where you just think to yourself, I'm a web developer, how difficult can it be to grab some JavaScript, HTML, CSS, put it in a web view or in a JavaScript virtual machine? How difficult could that be? But you quickly realize that each of those platforms has its own edge cases, has its own problems, and you have to learn a completely different workflow, and it all becomes complicated very fast. And due to that, it can become quite a lengthy process. So for a simple mobile experience, the learning curve is just so big that you just end up not having the time to do it, or not having your management backup, especially if you work as a small team or as a freelance developer. If you go native, that's even worse, because you either have yourself, unless you're already a Java or a Swift developer, you'll have to learn another programming language to work with, or you have to go bankrupt trying to hire an iOS developer. Maybe you'll be able to find an affordable Android dev, but again, it just increases the cost, increases the barriers to entry, and so it does not work. Another reason and problem with all the other platforms is that they all rely on the app stores. This was fantastic when it all started. Great app store, all the apps are there. I just go download, and it quickly becomes daunting for both users and for developers. I don't know if anyone tried to put an app on both Android and iOS. When you just start with it, understanding all the registration processes, all the delays with when it's vetoing processes, it's just, and some stores are better than others, but still, they all come with that problem. And obviously, you have to pay fees, and so you basically, the reason I enjoy web development and how I got into it is the fact that I can build something, put it on a web server, and everybody gets it. Here, you go back to, I built something, put it on a web server, now I need to put it on an Android store, now I need to put it on an iOS store, oh, something is broken, everything has to be done again. So we don't like multiple live environments. That again contributes to a long development life cycle. There's multiple areas of failure, because again, you're putting things into multiple places. It's hard to implement changes, and it becomes a costly solution. Finally, it's difficult to share code between your web application and your mobile experience, basically, between your mobile application. The hybrid apps were trying to bridge that gap, but because you have to use a different platform, it's again a different project. So that means that you have to package up some of your shared bits of JavaScript, and that becomes, again, a complicated story. So some of you will just look at this and say, well, for most of it, I can just build a simple responsive website. And why not? And you're absolutely right, because in many use cases, if you build a nice, well-designed responsive website, your users will be very happy. And all of us know that even the big companies out there do not have that. And quite often on a mobile, their apps don't work very well. However, just a responsive website does not always fit all the criteria. And why not? This is why. So we are in 2017, but it's still, the bandwidth is still a big problem. And not only talking about countries so far away like China and India and everything, that's the usual example, but in our own country, the bandwidth is horrible, because I worked with a medical professional who lives at the Scottish border, and he still has to carry a pager with him because of how bad the connections are there. So low bandwidth is still an issue. We don't have access out of the box in a responsive website. We don't have access to native device features such as push notifications, so it's hard for us to re-engage with the customers. It's difficult to provide offline support. So you can kind of rely on JavaScript, standard JavaScript APIs to provide that offline support in local storage. But again, once you go offline, you refresh the page, you get an error. And yeah, it's difficult to give a user an immersive experience. Your app, your website is just another tab in somebody's browser. So yeah, you just get lost in the plethora of other things that people are looking at. So what is the alternative? And this is where we come to progressive web apps. So first let's define what a progressive web app actually is. The official definition states the following. So basically, progressive web apps are user experiences that have the reach of the web and are reliable. So essentially, you can load the app all the time and you never see the error. They are fast, so they respond quickly to users' interactions with nice animations, and yeah, they feel native. Engaging, so as they feel as a native app, and you can engage with the user in the same sort of ways as you would do in a native application. So a few more sort of concepts to describe about a progressive app. So progressive, what does it mean? So works for everyone. That means that it works regardless of your browser choice because it's built with progressive enhancements. It's responsive, so it basically fits any form factor. So it can be desktop, mobile, or anything else that's going to come in the future. It's connectivity independent. So because of the technologies that are used to build progressive web apps, it allows you to work offline. It's app-like. So essentially, your web application feels like a native application. It's fresh, meaning that you get the latest updates straight away. So rather than waiting for publishing something in the App Store, it's a web application. You'll get an update as soon as it's pushed to the server. It's safe. They say that because they force you to use HTTPS by default, so you cannot build progressive web apps on HTTP. It'll let you use localhost, but not HTTP. So it's discoverable. The whole technology that one of the components of progressive web apps is the manifest, and that manifest is basically now discoverable by search engines, and so your web application will actually be identified as an application in the search. It's re-engageable, so it's easy to re-engage with users through things like push notifications. And finally, it's installable and linkable. So on supported browsers, your app can be added to the home screen, and also you can share the app by just merely sending a link. So what are the benefits of going through this sort of approach of building applications? Basically, we are building a web application using the same code base. What we're doing is essentially creating a responsive website and just adding a few features into it to make it a progressive web application. Goodbye app stores. You don't need to use an app store anymore for your mobile application because you just distribute it via URL. Our web application becomes a first-class citizen on mobile. It significantly reduces complexity because, again, your mobile application is your web application. And yeah, that contributes to a much faster development lifecycle. So, the capabilities of progressive web apps, because it's all nice, but obviously progressive web apps are limited to the capabilities of the browsers. And obviously that is changing every month, every year. Browsers are able to do a lot more. This website is actually very nice because it shows what native device of capabilities browsers have today. So you can visit that website, and I'll share the presentation afterwards, so you can have a look at those URLs. But if you look through it, you'll see that most of the things that you need in a common mobile sort of application use case is there. So that's the capabilities and how well are they supported. So I'll be talking about the components of a progressive web app, but it's essentially the most important component is a service worker. And that now is, so until a couple of months, it was still sort of a thing that Chrome has implemented, Firefox has implemented, Opera has implemented, but Safari and Edge were kind of have not committed to it. So the good news is now that they're all committed to service worker technology. So basically that means that I think from that what I can read is that they're all thinking that progressive web apps are the way to go. The manifest is a nice to have with being able to install things to the home screen and everything, and that's fully supported in Chrome and fully supported in Opera. So again, you can check out this URLs afterwards to see what the exact sort of intrinsic details of service worker support and when it's coming to those other browsers. So what are the components of a PWA? Basically, there are just 3 components. So it's the first one, and the core of a PWA is a service worker. Then we have the app manifest, and finally we have the app shell. Service worker. So there was a speaker who did actually a presentation about Service Worker, and he showed us in detail what you can do with it. So I think I'll leave that outside of the scope of this presentation. But just quickly to explain what the Service Worker is, it's basically a worker script. It's a JavaScript that works behind the scenes, independent of your application. And basically, the Service Worker is responsible for handling network requests, push notifications, connectivity changes, and some other things that you can do. It's sometimes described as a proxy or middleware for all your app's requests. So essentially, you have a script running in the background. Anything that any request you do in the app goes through that script, and only then goes to the outside world, and vice versa. So this is just a very sort of general way how you would register a service worker. So you can see that you have, so this is some native APIs. Basically, you register just a JavaScript. Yeah, and then it heavily relies on promises. So you register JavaScript, and then you can do stuff with it. And this is how a service worker, at its simplest, actually looks. So there's some events of listeners you can put in, and yeah, you can see that you can basically put all the stuff you want to cache into a certain area. There's some names and all that. So yeah, again, you can. It's a complex, but yet quite clear subject once you've sort of read about it in a couple of blog posts. The Manifest Json. So that's basically the file that's responsible for making your app discoverable and installable. So what the Manifest Json helps you do is that the file is used to basically to make the PWA installable on the browser that supports it. It gives the browser instructions for serving your application. So it has things like information about the logo of your app, the background colors, the name of your application, the short name that will be used when you place something on the home screen. And it's just a JSON file basically. This is how a basic Manifest JSON looks. Yeah, so you can see, so you have like the name, the short name, the URL that the app should start at, and what sort of display do you want it to not show the address bar at all. Now in the latest versions of Chrome it will support as well a full screen experience as well, so you can set it as full screen so it'll take over the entire screen. And finally the third component is the app shell. So that's basically the cover for your app. So what's the app shell? What is an app shell? It's the minimal HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that is required to power the user interface of your app. So essentially, what you're trying to do is to separate the data of your application from the actual user interface. So that will in most cases, it will contain like your main menu and your footer and etc. And you'll have the area where you'll be loading data in. It's the first thing that the user will load, and that is what is going to get cached. So when they'll access it offline, the app shell is going to be the thing that they will access first. And then through it, they'll be able to access the rest of the application. And this is the area where the various UI frameworks come in handy, because they can handle that for you. So great. So how do I build a PWA? So you have a number of options as usual. So you can go, and because it's so simple, it's just 3 components. You need a service worker, you need a manifest, and you need an app shell. So you can go and add it manually to your existing app. Some of the frameworks like Vue.js, for example, have an inbuilt template. So there's CLI. If you look at the options to actually build a new project for Vue.js, the PWA is one of the options. The Ionic CLI as well, the latest versions, they all have PWA as a default, basically, project in. And there are other tools I've seen for converting to PWA. So there's a tool by Google called Lighthouse. So that will go through your website and actually analyze how progressive you are. I'll show you. I'll show it to you afterwards. And yeah, and I've seen a number of them where you can just paste a link and it'll go and tell you what you can do to make your app progressive. Very patronizing term, isn't it? So let's build a PWA with Ionic. What is Ionic? Ionic is basically a framework based on Angular, hence why I like it. And it gives you sort of a native software developer kit for developing mobile and PWA applications with ease. Why I like Ionic is because it supports PWAs out of the box. It's a very fast development workflow. Their CLI is amazing. It's really good. It's clear. It's well documented and nice and easy to use. It's a mature framework. It's been around for a while. They came from far because they were based on Angular 1 and they managed to go through all the performance problems and still were providing a very nice and fast experience even with Angular 1. So they handle all the problems with how your form fields and components display on different browsers, on different devices, and obviously we're only talking about iOS and Android, but yeah, it's a very mature and sort of, nice to use framework. It's powered by the latest version of Angular, so it comes then with all the performance improvements and ahead of time compilation and all the component structure and all that. It has a massive community, so there's plenty of resource to help, and yeah, it's backed up by quite a few big companies as well. So. Demo time. Let's try, and I'll just show you how you can build a progressive web application using Ionic. Obviously, if I'll find my mouse on the screen, very confusing. So. Bash terminal. So there's a few simple steps that we need to take. So first of all, you'll need to install the Ionic CLI, and you'll just do that through npm install Ionic. So and that will make the Ionic command available to you. When you have to look there. So that just tells you all the various options that the Ionic command can give you. I think I'm going to have to remove that mirroring. Sorry about that. Display settings. It'd be easier if I can actually see what I'm doing. Yeah, exciting stuff. So, my notes. So we install that, and then we can just create an application by running the following command. So that says that you're already in an Ionic project. So let me just go back up a directory. Boom. Yeah. So that will just ask me for a couple of options. So what sort of template I want to do, and basically it gives me a number of options there to choose from. For some reason don't work in this one, but I'll just choose the default one. Would you like to integrate your new application with Cordova? No, I don't. because I'm building a PWA. So yeah, so that basically runs the command, and it will get everything it needs and all that sort of stuff, create the project structure and everything. So we're not going to do that. I already have it done. So I'll just cd into that, and I'll just open Visual Studio Code and just show you. So basically what it does, it creates a project. This is something I've added already myself, these GitHub pages, but yeah, the usual stuff. You have your node modules, all your source code goes here. So you'll have a couple of components and etc. And then afterwards, when you build everything, it'll go into the www directory, and then it's just a standard website to serve. So if I just if I just run a command called Ionic serve, that will spin up a web server, and it doesn't like that bash thing. Okay. Yeah, because I'm already running it, so let me just do it here. Yep, so again, Ionic serve. So that builds everything, uses Webpack to package everything up. All finished, and at the end it'll just run. Anytime now. That's not the framework, that's my PC. I had loads of problems with it. But yeah, we get a very simple application, exciting stuff, menus, wow, cool. Yep. So yeah, we can. So yeah, so that's, you get that out of the box already. So you have a number of different templates you can use if you did just for a quick sort of start. So how do we make it progressive? So as I said, it comes progressive. The code for it being progressive is there out of the box. And by that, what I mean is that if we look at the source, if we look at the index.html, so we have this little piece of code there, which is registering a service worker, and we can also see that the service worker file is there as well, and we can see that it will cache all the sort of the main JavaScript, the vendor, all the vendor JavaScript files, the CSS, polyfills, the index page, and the manifest JSON. And again, the manifest JSON is there as well, and it shows to us basically, all the information about this application. So we can go into the browser, and if we open Chrome Development Tools and look at our applications, we can see that, yay, exciting, we have a service worker running. So if we needed to test something like, I don't know, push a notification or anything, we obviously can do that in here. And then I have deployed this to GitHub Pages, because so I've deployed this simple application to GitHub Pages. So if I go there, it opens it up, and here is that tool I was talking about called Lighthouse. So I can just I can generate a report to see how progressive my very complicated application is. So it'll go do its business, and it'll produce a nice looking report. And while it's doing that, is it now? Okay, yeah, because they were talking about it in the presentation, but retrieving trace, all magical stuff. Exciting stuff. So I am 91% progressive, and you can see it'll give you some information of what you're missing, etc. That's great. So that's just to show you how simple it actually is. So anybody can do that. You can do it with any framework, and I'm just showing Ionic as an example of how to build it. So I wanted to show, and I hope that's going to work, of how what does it actually look like on a mobile device. So I'll try to use this. Okay, so allow me to do that. See if that's going to work. So basically, here we go. We are on a phone. So let's just go there and let's go to that same application that I was building. So here is the application. So now I can actually, so sorry about that. I'll have to mute those somehow. How do I mute all notifications? Can I do that? Anybody knows how to mute all notifications? Sorry about that. Yeah. Yes, that's probably, yes. Great. Okay, so that should work. Okay, so back to this. Sorry about that. So basically there's some clever logic inbuilt into Chrome. It's when you access a progressive web app, if you access it for enough time and etc., it will give you a recommendation to actually add it to the home screen. So they've built that around, so basically they don't want to annoy you all the time, that every time you reach a PWA that you get that prompt. So you only get that prompt if you stay on that website long, if you engage with that web application long enough. But you can always just add it to your home screen from here normally. The problem is I've already, yeah, and I've removed it. Yeah. Oh my God! So live demos. So yeah, so you see the app is actually discoverable, that app that I've created, so, and it opens as a immersive experience. So that's just the same application essentially. Yeah, so it works nicely. I have downloaded, just wanted to show you the sort of the biggest players in the PWA world. So let me do that again. So Financial Times, surprisingly, is actually one company that has been working on PWAs for a while. So, and their app.ft.com is built as a full progressive web application. So again, you can see it's a nice mobile experience. And if I add that to the home screen, so it downloads it. It knows that it's, you can see that it has like a special sort of type of download. So basically that basically tells it that it's an app, and then you can see it appears on your home screen as an application. So if I open it again, I go into a full-fledged mobile experience. That was much simpler than going to an app store and trying to install an application. Yeah, so I thought that will give enough of an idea. There, let's close that. Okay, so that's the Lighthouse report. So that's great. So also, if I switch off Wi-Fi, the app will still work. I just don't want to do that. It's going to be too much hassle to go back on. But yeah, so basically that's that. This. Taking a while, there's some disconnection. Okay, so there's some more examples you can see. There's this website called PWA Rocks, and it has loads and loads of PWA examples. So Financial Times is a great app that is built as a PWA. Forbes magazine have built their app as a PWA, and they actually had a massive ad campaign about progressive web apps. So it's even been included in the PWA presentation at Google I/O. So Trivago is another one, and Lyft, which is the Uber kind of Uber competitor in America, they have built their mobile site as a PWA, and that's quite nice to see because it actually has more sophisticated technology rather than just viewing content. It actually has maps and little cars moving around and stuff. And yeah, so that's progressive web apps. So anybody has any questions? Yeah.
Could you use it to make like software? Like for a Windows machine or Apple, or is it for?
So what exactly? It depends what you mean by software, essentially, if you build a web application, a common scenario, like for example, for a progressive web app, people talk about is like you are on a train. Yeah, you decide to go look at your restaurant's website. The first thing, you're on a mobile, the first thing that pops up, download our application. Connection goes down, you have to wait until it's available, you go into the store, you download 20 meg, whatever app with all the pictures. By the time it's downloaded, you open, the connection is still weak, you already forgotten what you wanted to do. So that's where a PWA comes handy. When you talk about software, you mean like if you have a web application for case management and you want to add it to the desktop. You can add it as a shortcut. At the moment, the Manifest itself is more supported on the mobile browsers rather than the desktop browsers, because I don't think it kind of makes that much sense, if you see what I mean. Maybe it'll come later, but yeah.
So some of this sounds very similar to what Mozilla were doing with Firefox OS, where they wanted to get around the problem of app stores.
Yeah.
And so the idea of Firefox OS, and it was partly implemented on desktop as well, with
Yeah.
the Firefox browser. It was all manifests and everything, and the idea was it would land on your phone as an app, whether that was Android or the Firefox OS. That did have an integration to the desktop, but it was short-lived. They got rid of it eventually. There was a time where I think my Raspberry Pi has got a music player thing on it, and I can actually find that in the next desktop.
Well, even today, I mean, if you are in Chrome and if you go and just decide to add it to the desktop, I mean, where is it? So create application, add to desktop. So you can do that, and Chrome will add it as an application. Where is it? So it does look like an app, and actually in Chrome it does get rid of your browser bar and everything. So it actually does work.
One thing you didn't mention.
Yeah.
When I was thinking this was very similar to what Firefox or Mozilla were proposing, is that they had a mechanism where you can sell an app that was delivered in this manner. Is such a mechanism?
No, because that's I think where this differs, because what they're trying to, I think at the moment it's called progressive web apps, but eventually it should just be called web apps. Google is one of the big sort of drivers behind this. What they're trying to do is that to make this just a standard thing that you do with any web application. It's not a new mechanism for selling things. No, it's how you build an application that will give a good experience on any platform. So I think this is maybe where it sort of diverts slightly.
But I guess that wasn't a way to actually sell.
Well, you can sell stuff inside. You can put a Braintree component or a whatever is the other payment system you use, and you can just start selling it in like you would be selling stuff in your website. Yeah.
I might have missed it, but it looked like when you're building that manifest, you're specifying the static file and the libraries where all that's going to get compiled. But what about caching data that you retrieve from online? So if you were to hit an API, you've got the data there, can you store that locally and then reload that instantly when you hit the app?
Yeah. The way it works is that the service worker will be responsible for intercepting your request and then actually deciding. You can put logic in there to decide. So, do I have that request cached? You can use the IndexedDB, so that's fully supported within Service Worker. So you can place that in there. Service Worker doesn't have access to the DOM, but you can communicate to its host via sort of posting messages backwards and forwards. But essentially you have an event listener called fetch. And so essentially any request that goes to your app ends up there, and you just put some logic in there to do what you want to do. IndexedDB sizes, I'm not sure actually what the limits are, but I'm not sure how much you'll be able to store. There, anybody knows? Anybody has that information? Google, maybe. How much? 200. Okay, 250 megabytes. I'm not sure. That'll be. I think that this is where browser specifics will come into play, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, probably. But it's a good consideration actually to think about. Yeah. I guess this is where your different use cases come in handy. Today, when you create an e-store, an e-commerce store, for example, you wouldn't be caching everything that is in your store on your mobile device. That wouldn't make immediate sense. It's the same if, like I mentioned, the restaurant. So you would cache even on a mobile device, all your images, maybe your menu, a little bit of data. Obviously, if you're building something like a game, or you'll still go native. This is I think progressive web apps fit in those areas where, like in my line of work, I build web applications for public health. And mobile experiences is something that is very nice for you to sell the application, because management likes to be able to look at stuff on their phone, but it's not something that users use every day. So trying to sell a full native solution to your management, or even a hybrid app solution, it's just not cost effective. So yeah, I think this is the decision you'll have to make. Is what am I doing? Is mobile my first and foremost platform, or is it my website that I want people to engage with more? There's some interesting statistics when you look at the Forbes magazine app. I mean, they were talking about things like it increased, I think, in the user session length increased by like 43% or something like that. Just purely because, people were in a taxi, reading that article, and when they hit the next article, they were still, on it. It didn't just go offline. So, yeah.
How often does it communicate back to see if there's an updated version of the app?
Well, that's actually in your control, because again, that you can inbuilt it into the service worker. You basically have all that logic in, so you'll be able to, pass a parameter in to say that my JavaScript code has changed. Please update everything on the app. I think this was the problem with what was the previous caching technology in. Again, you were creating like a manifest file, and you could cache a lot of static assets that were very difficult to get rid of. Yeah, with the service worker, it's much simpler. It's all inbuilt for that purpose, so you'll be able to tell it when to update it and when not to update it. Like the Ionic, one of the interesting things, the Ionic hybrid applications, they already were playing with this before. So essentially, when you were building apps with Cordova and deploying them to the store, you were able actually to update your JavaScript code without having to republish your app on the store, because essentially they just store JavaScript assets, so you were able to just communicate them in and get your new versions in. Yep.
How will it work on iOS?
Well, that's the thing. I think the biggest reason why people were not, because progressive web apps were around for a while, but the traction only started getting there now. And one of the reasons is because on the Safari's website, it's marked as in development. So service workers, they finally said, yes, we are committing to it. And the same goes with IE. So so Safari, at the moment, if you're going to build a progressive web app now, you'll have limited functionality. But I've seen there's a few polyfills that you can put in for caching and stuff. So Safari now has actually, if you call that navigator.serviceworker, you just get an empty object, but it's there. So they are working on it. Any more questions?
How much does overlap to like Adobe Air? Is there much that would stay on the same territory?
Adobe Air, I'm not sure I've...
That's an idea where you actually think your brand, but you can create a website for each brand.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what it's built in though. What sort of language does it? Because Ionic is basically the way they do it is that you have a web view.
Yeah, they use like Flash, so it's like a little.
Okay, yeah. So here there's no Flash or anything like that. This is the beauty is that you build your app in Angular. This is, if you look at Ionic, it's just an Angular application, and essentially afterwards when you use Cordova, you just put it into a web view and then deploy that to your iPhones and Androids. Whereas here, you just that stuff that goes into the web view, you just display it in the browser. So yeah, there's no magic happening behind the scenes. This is what I really like about progressive web apps, because if you've seen that, I mean, there's nothing magical. So it's all just common sense. You have that nice JavaScript that runs, that can intercept stuff, and you can do into it. And then it's like if you were doing server side and you had a Redis service running, with a little bit of messaging going on, and cache some data, analyze what requests go in, what needs to go out, and all that. So yeah, this is what I like about it compared to like hybrid apps and all that. There's a lot of magic. That Cordova layer that talks to the native layer, and different on iOS and different there, and then you get an API that sort of allows you to talk to them both in the same way, and things go wrong very fast. Yeah?